The sky was still dark when Aria stepped out of the worn front door of her small row house on Woodward Avenue. A thin ribbon of cold air curled around her, making her pull her jacket tighter. She paused for a moment to take a deep breath. In the quiet of the morning, she could hear the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a neighborhood dog. Her mother was already gone, working her early shift at the diner downtown. Her little brother, Marcus, lay curled in bed, clutching his stuffed rabbit. Aria gave him a quick kiss on the forehead and slipped out, careful not to wake him. The walk to the bus stop was only a few blocks, but each step seemed to cost her something. She counted her money in her pocket again, 2 crumpled $1 bills and a few coins rattling together. It was all she had left after buying Marcus the spiral notebook and pencils he needed for school. She thought of how his eyes had lit up when she handed over the supplies. He had hugged her so tight she almost dropped the bag. Aria smiled at the memory and tucked her hands into her coat pockets. At the stop, a handful of other early riders shuffled in the cold. An older man with threadbare gloves tapped his foot, while a woman in a bright red scarf stared at her phone. Aria tried not to let the chill seep into her bones. She focused on the soft leather cover of Marcus's rabbit, peeking out of her backpack. She had promised him she would always look out for him. The bus rattled around the corner, its headlights breathing life into the empty street. She climbed the 3 steps onto the bus and offered her fare to the driver $1.75. The driver, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, nodded and handed her a faded transfer ticket. Aria took her seat by the window and watched the world wake up. The bus swayed gently over potholes and cracks in the road. Houses gave way to empty lots and then to the glass towers of downtown. Near the back door, a man stood wearing layers of old, mismatched clothes. His coat was stained, and one sleeve had a tear near the cuff. His shoes had holes, and he balanced carefully on one foot before shifting his weight. He looked frightened, as if he thought the driver would kick him out at any moment. When he handed over a handful of coins far less than the fare, the driver shook her head. "Sorry," she said quietly. "Not enough." The man stared down at his hand, at the coins he could not use. His shoulders sagged as if the weight of each coin pressed him down. A sigh escaped him, soft and full of defeat. Aria watched from her window seat. She felt a sting in her chest for him. She did not know his story, but she knew what it was like to have nothing. She gently stood up, brushing her bag against the seat. She walked to him and offered her transfer ticket. The man looked up, surprise and confusion in his eyes. "You don't have to do that," he whispered, his voice rough from cold or from fatigue. Aria shook her head. "It's okay," she said softly. "I can give you my seat and my ticket. I'll be all right." He hesitated, and Aria could see the struggle in his eyes, pride warring with need. Finally, he nodded, unable to speak. Aria stepped off at the next stop. Outside, the street lamp's light looked weak in the early dawn. Aria waited for the next bus and felt her heart pound fast. She thought of Marcus and how he would laugh when she told him she had given away her bus pass. She pictured his face, happy and trusting. She thought of her mother, who had taught her that kindness was the most precious gift. A cold wind blew through her, but her heart felt warm. When the second bus arrived, Aria climbed aboard and paid her fare again. The ride felt longer this time, but she tried not to worry. She had walked before when she had to. She closed her eyes for a moment and felt the bus's rhythm rock her gently. Each bump in the road was a reminder of the world outside her small home, full of hard days but also full of chances to help others. At school, the metal doors opened with a clang. Students shuffled in, rubbing their eyes and chattering about tests and weekend plans. Aria stashed her backpack in her locker and then hurried to homeroom. She found a seat in the front row. Her teacher, Mrs. Jackson, greeted her with a warm smile. "Late again?" she teased gently. Aria shook her head and offered the simple truth. "Long way here today." All morning, Aria replayed the moment on the bus in her mind. She wondered why she felt so both anxious and excited. Someone had seen her give her ticket away. Would they think she was foolish or kind? She tried to focus on the math problems on the board, but her thoughts kept drifting back. During lunch, a friend named Carla tapped her shoulder. "Did you hear? Someone paid that ragged man's fare this morning. People are talking about it." Aria's cheeks warmed. "It was me," she said quietly. Carla's eyes opened wide. "You did what?" Carla whispered, sounding part impressed and part confused. Aria shrugged. "I had extra. He needed it more than I did in that moment." Carla shook her head, smiling. "You're amazing." Aria smiled back but felt a shiver of nerves. She did not think of herself as amazing. She just thought of a boy or a man who needed help. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Aria stood and collected her books. She packed her bag carefully, checking that she still had the few dollars left for her mother's fare home. She had enough. She hoped. On the bus ride back, she kept her eyes on the doors, waiting in case the ragged man from before would board. But he did not. She wondered if he had made it to where he was going. She hoped he stayed safe. When she arrived home, Marcus bounded down the steps and threw his small arms around her waist. "Did you get me that notebook?" he asked, his voice full of hope. Aria knelt and hugged him tight. Yes, she had. And she had given away her bus ticket too. She met her mother at the kitchen table, where a single plate of eggs sat. They shared their small meal in comfortable silence. Aria held Marcus's hand and felt a deep swell of pride. She had little, but she had given what she could. And that, she knew, was enough. ChatGPT said, Aria could not stop thinking about the ragged man as she walked into school the next day. The hallways buzzed with chatter and locker doors slamming, but her mind drifted back to his tired eyes and the way his hand shook when he counted his coins. She hurried to her locker and reached for her books, trying to focus on her first class. Just then, she heard a soft voice behind her. "Excuse me," the voice said. Aria turned and saw the same man from the bus. He stood in front of the row of silver lockers, his coat still worn and patched. He looked as if he had stepped out of yesterday's rain without a dry change of clothes. His hair was mussed, and he smelled faintly of dust and city streets. Aria's heart pounded. "Hello," she said, offering a small smile. She closed her locker door and stepped aside to make room. The man's eyes flickered with surprise and relief. He cleared his throat and said, I wanted to thank you again for what you did." Aria shrugged. "It was nothing," she said, softly. "I had an extra ticket." He nodded, looking down at his scuffed shoes. "My name is David Morgan. I'm new here, well, sort of." Aria raised her eyebrows. "New?" she asked. He glanced around, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I work nearby, but I move around a lot for my job. I don't stay in one place." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Aria felt a pang of sympathy. She remembered what it was like to be the new girl, to stand alone in the crowded cafeteria. She offered her hand. "I'm Aria Williams," she said. "If you ever need help finding your classes, just ask." He took her hand in a firm grip, and she felt warmth spread through her palm. "Thank you, Aria," he said. His voice was low and calm, but Aria could sense the tiredness beneath it. "May I walk with you today?" he asked. Arya hesitated, then nodded. She grabbed her backpack and they started down the hall together. As they walked, Arya tried to make small talk. "Do you like Detroit?" she asked. David shrugged. "It has its moments," he said. "The people can be kind. But life can be hard here." Arya knew what he meant. She thought of her own family's struggles, her mother's long hours at the diner, her brother's worn-out shoes. She said, "Some days are hard for me too." David glanced at her with curiosity. "You seem different from most people I meet," he said. "Most people barely notice someone like me." Arya frowned. "I notice when someone needs help," she said. "My mom taught me that." He smiled, this time genuinely. "Your mother sounds like a good woman." They reached the cafeteria just as the first bell rang. Arya showed David to a quiet corner, near the windows. The room smelled of pizza and cafeteria oil. Students crowded the long tables, talking and laughing loudly. Arya scanned the room, looking for their usual lunch group. She spotted Carla and two other friends waving at her. Carla ran over, her red hair bouncing. "Arya, there you are," she said. Then she noticed the man beside Arya and stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes widened. "Who's this?" she asked, a mix of surprise and suspicion in her voice. Arya swallowed. "This is David," she said. "He's new here." David offered a polite nod. Carla glanced at his coat and looked uncomfortable. "Okay," she said slowly. "Nice to meet you, David." Carla turned back to Arya and lowered her voice. "Are you sure you should be hanging out with him? He looks different." Arya took a deep breath. "He's just a guy," she said firmly. "He needs a friend." Carla shrugged and returned to her table. The other students whispered as they passed by. Arya felt a flicker of anger. She hated how people judged others by their clothes or their shoes. She stood her ground, smiling at David. "Make yourself at home," she said. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Arya prodded her macaroni and cheese with her fork. She wondered about David's life, where he slept, what made him end up on that bus without enough change. She glanced at him. His eyes were fixed on the trays passing by, as if he remembered meals he could not afford. "Why are you here?" she asked gently. David sighed. "I travel for work," he said. "I help run community centers in cities that need support. I convince people to donate, to volunteer. But sometimes I lose track of myself." He looked at Arya. "I was so busy helping others that I forgot to take care of me." Arya nodded. She understood. She knew what it was like to give until there was nothing left. She shared a small piece of her sandwich with him. "You should eat," she said. "You'll feel better." He smiled gratefully and took it. They talked about small things, favorite subjects, dreams for the future, the best places to grab coffee around school. Arya found herself relaxing. David's voice was calm and kind, and he listened more than he spoke. She felt as if she had known him for years. After lunch, they walked back to class together. In history, Arya noticed David glancing at the world map on the wall. She thought he might be lost, but instead he was tracing his finger along the lines of the continents. She nudged him quietly. "You like maps?" she whispered. He nodded. "They remind me of all the places I still want to visit," he said. Arya watched him and felt a spark of curiosity. She wondered what his story really was. Why did he wear those old clothes if he traveled so much? Why did he let himself go? She decided she would find out, but not push too hard. Some secrets took time. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Arya gathered her things. She said goodbye to David at the main doors. He stood there in the late afternoon light. his coat looking just as worn as in the morning. "Thank you for today, Arya," he said. "You have a good heart." Arya smiled. "Thank you for talking with me," she said. "I hope tomorrow we can walk together again." David hesitated, then nodded. "I hope so too." Arya waved and walked toward the bus stop, her steps light. She felt a mixture of excitement and worry. She cared about this man, but she did not know his past. She repeated her mother's words in her mind. Kindness does not ask questions. It just gives. That night, Arya lay in bed next to her brother, reading him a story. Marcus yawned and said, "I like the man you met today." Arya laughed softly. "His name is David," she said. "He's just someone who needed help." Marcus turned in the bed and closed his eyes. "I want to help people like you," he whispered. Arya kissed his forehead. "You already do," she said. She lay awake long after Marcus fell asleep, thinking about David's words. She intended to learn more about him, his work, his travels, his life. She hoped she could help him the way he seemed to help others. As the moonlight filtered through the curtains, Arya smiled. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she was ready. She had given her bus ticket, and in return she had gained a friend. And maybe, she thought, that was the best reward of all. The next morning, Arya woke before her alarm again. She lay still for a moment, thinking of David Morgan and their walk together yesterday. She wondered what the day might bring. When she stepped outside, the air was crisp and clear. She smiled. As she walked toward the bus stop, her breath puffing in little clouds. On the bus, she found her usual seat and watched the streets slide by. She thought of how quiet things had been before she met David, and how different life felt now. She paid her fare and sat down, clutching the bus pole as the vehicle bumped along. She let her mind wander to her school, her family, and the strange new friend she had got at school. Whispers followed her through the halls. A few students nodded at her. Some smiled shyly. Many had seen the social media post overnight. Someone's act of kindness toward a ragged man on the bus. Arya felt a mix of pride and embarrassment. She wished the attention would fade, but she also saw how people talked about helping others more after the post dot in homeroom. Mrs. Jackson glanced at Arya's name on the attendance list and then back at her. "You look bright today," she said with a kind smile. Arya nodded and returned the smile. She noticed Carla watching her from across the room. Carla gave her a thumbs up. Arya raised her eyebrows in surprise. Carla mouthed, "Good job." At lunch, Arya waited in the cafeteria line. She spotted Carla first, then the two other friends, Malik and Sonia. They said hello, but their eyes flicked to David's empty seat. Arya explained quietly. "He had something to do before lunch. He said he'd meet me after school." Malik shrugged and moved on. Sonia leaned closer. "I hope he's okay," she whispered. Arya nodded. "Me too." After classes ended, Arya waited outside in the late afternoon sunshine. The air felt warm on her cheeks. She watched the flow of students pouring out. David did not appear right away. She checked her phone, no message. She felt a small knot of worry tighten in her stomach. She almost turned to go home, but then she saw him coming around the corner. David wore the same coat but looked different. He stood taller, seeming more confident. He smiled at Arya when he saw her. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said as he reached her. "I had to meet someone about the community center." Arya's worry melted. "It's okay," she said. "Tell me about it." They walked together to the bus stop. David fell into step beside her. He talked about the center's plans, adding new books, starting art classes, creating a small garden in the courtyard. His words painted bright images. Arya listened and felt proud to know someone making changes. She said, "That sounds wonderful." He nodded. "It does. And it started with your kindness." Arya looked at him, surprised. "Mine?" she asked. David paused. He looked at the ground, then back at her. "Yes," he said softly. "When you helped me, you reminded me why I do this work. You showed me that simple acts can open doors." Arya felt her cheeks warm. She did not know her small gift could have such impact. On the bus ride home, they sat together near the window. David pointed out places in the city where the community center had helped. The playground that had new swings, the library corner filled with books, the mural on the side of the building. Arya studied each place as they passed by. She felt a deep sense of connection to her city, to her home. She said, "I never saw it like that." He smiled at her. "That's why we need fresh eyes sometimes." When they reached Arya's stop, she paused. She wanted to invite him home to meet her mother and Marcus, but she hesitated. She was shy about her small house. The paint was chipped, the yard bare of flowers, and they often ate dinner late. She swallowed and said, "Thank you for today." David reached out and squeezed her shoulder. "Thank you, Arya." That night, Arya sat at the kitchen table doing homework. Her mother, tired from the diner, sat nearby grading papers. Marcus sat on the floor playing with his rabbit. Arya told them about the community center's new garden and art class. Her mother smiled. "That sounds lovely," she said. Marcus clapped his hands. Arya added, "David said it started because of me." Her mother looked curious. "Started because of you?" Arya nodded. "He said my kindness reminded him why he works so hard." Her mother patted her hand. "I'm proud of you." The next day at school, surprises awaited Arya. In her first class, a teacher handed her an envelope. Inside was a thank you card from the community center. On the front was a small drawing of a bus with a man and a girl. Inside, David had written, "Your kindness changed more than my ride home. It started something bigger. Thank you." Arya held the card close and felt tears sting her eyes. Word of the card spread quickly. Teachers spoke of the girl who made a difference. Students looked at her with new respect. Some offered her extra notes, some invited her to join study groups. Arya felt proud but also nervous. She wondered what would happen next. That afternoon, she joined David at the community center. He had invited her to help plant the garden. Arya arrived after school, wearing old clothes she did not mind getting dirty. David greeted her with a broad smile. "Ready to dig?" he asked. Arya picked up a small shovel. "Let's do it." They worked side by side as the sun dipped low. They turned the soil, placed seeds in neat rows, and covered them with earth. David taught her how to space the seeds so each plant would grow strong. Arya laughed when some dirt fell on her cheeks. He used a soft cloth to wipe it away. She felt his gentle care and thought again about the man she had helped. Other volunteers arrived, neighbors, school friends, even Carla and Malik. When they saw Arya and David, they smiled and joined the line. Soon, the empty courtyard was alive with people planting seeds together. They talked and joked, sharing stories of why they cared. Arya felt warmth spread through her chest. She saw her own small act shine back at her in the smiles of others. By the time the garden was complete, the sky was painted with pink and orange. Arya stepped back to admire the rows of tiny green shoots. She said softly, "It looks beautiful." David stood beside her. "It will be more beautiful when the plants grow," he said. "Just like kindness." Arya nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. On the bus ride home that evening, Arya thought of the day's events. She watched the city lights blink on one by one. She thought of how one small moment, giving her ticket, had grown into a whole community working together. She felt humble and happy. When she got home, Marcus ran to her and said, "Tell me about the garden." Arya described each plant and laughed at Marcus's excitement. Her mother hugged her and said, "You've done something wonderful, Arya." Arya thought of David and the volunteers. She thought of the garden seeds waiting to sprout. She knew that her small act had grown into something far bigger. That night, Arya fell asleep with a smile. She dreamed of green leaves unfurling, of hands reaching out to help, and of a city where every heart could bloom with hope. She did not know what part 4 would bring, but she was ready. She had learned that kindness always carries a seed, and that seed can grow in the most unexpected ways. Months passed after the garden project took root. Green shoots emerged from the soil, stretching toward the sun. The community center blossomed into a place full of art, laughter, and learning. Arya watched with pride as children painted murals and neighbors gathered for classes. She continued to help whenever she could, carrying trays of seeds, clearing weeds, or simply offering a kind word. One afternoon, Mrs. Jackson handed Arya a brightly colored invitation. "You're invited to the City of Hope Gala," she said, with a smile. "They're honoring young people who make a difference." Arya held the card in her hands. The gala was a fancy event in a tall hotel downtown. Arya felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had never been to anything like it. That evening, Arya and her mother stood in front of a cracked mirror, trying to smooth her hair. Her mother borrowed her sister's old dress, a simple blue gown that hung just right. Marcus pressed his small handkerchief into Arya's pocket, his big brown eyes full of pride. "You'll be amazing," he said. They took a bus downtown, with Arya clutching the invitation. The tall buildings glowed like lanterns in the night. When they arrived, staff in crisp uniforms welcomed them. Arya's mother held her arm protectively as they entered a grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers dripped light over round tables dressed in white cloth. Soft music played as guests mingled, sipping sparkling juice and nibbling on hors d'oeuvres. Arya's heart pounded. She spotted Carla and Malik at a corner table, waving at her. She waved back, then looked around for David. He was not with the other volunteers who had helped plant the garden. Arya wondered if he would come. A hush fell over the room. A tall man in a dark suit stepped onto the stage. He smiled warmly and raised his hand. "Welcome to the City of Hope Gala," he said into the microphone. "Tonight we honor those whose simple acts of kindness have made our city a better place." The man paused. Arya realized it was David Morgan. He looked different from the ragged man she first met. His suit was tailored, his hair neatly combed, and he stood with quiet confidence. He nodded toward Arya. "One of our honorees is someone very special," he said. "Her name is Arya Williams." Arya's breath caught. She stood, her mother's hand tightening on her arm. David spoke of how Arya had given him her bus transfer ticket on that cold morning. He described her simple kindness, an act that reminded him of his purpose and set in motion the projects that now help dozens of families. "I want you all to meet the young woman who changed everything," he said. Arya's cheeks flushed. She stepped onto the stage and stood beside David under the bright lights. The audience applauded, some with tears in their eyes. Arya forced herself to smile, even though her heart raced and her legs shook. David held up a small envelope. "Arya," he said, "this is more than a thank you. It is an invitation." He opened the envelope and read, "We are proud to offer you a 4-year scholarship to State University to study education and community development with all expenses paid." The audience cheered as David handed the envelope to Arya. She felt tears slip down her cheeks. Her mother stood in the crowd, her face shining. Carla and Malik jumped to their feet shouting, "You did it, Arya!" Arya's voice trembled as she spoke into the microphone. "Thank you," she said softly. "I never thought my small choice would lead to this. I want to help others the way you helped me, and to make our city a kinder place." David stepped closer. "Arya," he said, "you remind us that kindness can come from anyone. It does not matter how much money you have or what you wear. It is the spirit in your heart that counts." He gestured to the crowd. "Tonight, we celebrate her and all of you who choose compassion every day." The applause grew louder. Arya felt warmth flood her body. For the first time, she saw the power of a simple act. She thought of Marcus, asleep in his bed with his rabbit, and of her mother's lessons about generosity. She knew her life would never be the same. After the ceremony, guests gathered around Arya. Reporters asked for interviews. A local newspaper photographer snapped her picture beside David. He posed with his arm around her shoulders like a proud uncle. Arya laughed, trying to keep her composure. Carla hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud," she whispered. Malik handed her his business card. "If you ever need help with college applications, call me," he said. Sonia gave Arya a bouquet of wildflowers. "These are for you," she said. Arya accepted the flowers, her hands trembling. As the gala wound down, David led Arya to a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. They leaned against the railing and breathed in the cool night air. "You did this," he said gently. "I only listened." Arya looked at him, her eyes shining. "I helped," she admitted. "But you made it grow." David nodded. "I promise to keep helping, and to involve you in everything we do. You are part of this work now." He took her hand. Arya felt a surge of hope. She realized her path was clear. She would study, return to her neighborhood, and keep planting seeds of kindness wherever she went. That night, Arya lay awake in her small bedroom, clutching the scholarship letter. She thought of the gala, of the applause, of David's proud smile. She felt ready for tomorrow, for college, for the future. She whispered into the darkness, "Thank you," knowing that her quiet act of giving had changed more than one life. And as she drifted to sleep, she dreamed of buses, gardens, and grand ballrooms, dreams born from a simple gift shared on a cold morning. Arya woke on the first morning of college with a flutter in her chest. Sunlight slipped through the thin curtains of her dorm room. She stretched and sat up, feeling the weight of the scholarship letter in her drawer. She thought of the gala, of David's proud smile, and of the quiet bus ride where everything began. She dressed in a simple jeans and sweater outfit and stepped out into the hallway. Her roommate, Jenna, greeted her with a cheerful wave. Jenna was studying psychology and had already made posters for a campus club. She said, "Ready for our first class?" Arya smiled and nodded. "Let's go," she said softly. In class, Arya listened to lectures about community development and teaching methods. She found the ideas exciting. How to plan lessons that made learning fun. How to organize neighborhood events. How to help children feel seen. She took notes eagerly, scribbling down every word. She felt alive, as if each page she filled would become a seed for something new back home. After classes, Arya met David at the Foundation's small office downtown. He had reserved a desk for her among stacks of papers and colorful flyers. He showed her a map of neighborhoods that needed support and explained their new project, mobile reading vans that would bring books to kids who could not reach the library. Arya's eyes lit up. "I want to design the schedule," she said. David nodded. "That would be wonderful. You know this community better than anyone." Arya felt a surge of pride and responsibility. She worked late into the evening, using her high school memories to choose the best spots for the vans to visit. Back in her dorm room, Arya video called her mother and Marcus. Marcus bounced in front of the camera, holding his stuffed rabbit. "How's college?" he asked, his eyes full of wonder. Arya laughed. "It's busy, but good," she said. She told them about her classes and her new project. Her mother smiled and said, "You're doing great, baby." Arya closed her eyes and let their voices comfort her. Even miles away, their love felt close. On weekends, Arya returned home to help with the reading vans. She and David loaded boxes of books into the van's shelves. Arya remembered her own excitement when she first saw new storybooks in her school. She wanted every child to feel that magic. They drove through dusty streets and narrow alleys, stopping at playgrounds and empty lots. Children ran toward them, reaching for books and chapter novels. Arya knelt to talk with them, asking their names and favorite stories. Their laughter filled the air. At each stop, Arya felt the same spark she had felt on the morning she gave away her ticket. One Saturday, Arya arrived early at the community center. Marcus was there, helping paint a new mural with colorful flowers and smiling faces. He looked up when he saw her and waved. Arya hugged him and said, "This looks amazing." Marcus grinned. "It's for you," he said. Arya blinked. "For me?" He nodded. "You taught me to help." "I painted to help too." Arya knelt and hugged him tight. She thought of how small acts can inspire even the youngest hearts. She ruffled his hair and said, "Thank you, Marcus." That afternoon, the foundation hosted a celebration in the garden they had planted. Neighbors brought snacks and sweet tea. Some played games, others shared stories of how the reading vans had helped their children learn to read. A young mother thanked Arya for giving her son hope. A retired teacher patted Arya's hand and said, "Keep going, dear. You're changing lives." Arya felt her eyes fill with tears. She swallowed hard and smiled. She thought of the ragged man on the bus, of the day her one small gift had changed everything. As the sun dipped low, David stepped forward. He tapped a spoon on a glass jar to quiet the crowd. He said, "Thank you all for coming, and a special thank you to Arya Williams." The crowd cheered. David continued, "Arya started as a student and became our leader today. She shows us that anyone, no matter their age, can be a force for good." He handed Arya a small plaque that read, "Seed of Kindness Award." Arya held it close, her heart pounding. She saw Marcus beaming at her side. That night, Arya stood in her quiet dorm room, gazing at the plaque on her desk. She thought of the journey buses and gardens and fancy galas. She realized that kindness does not belong to one moment or one person. It travels like ripples on water, touching lives, unseen. She picked up her pen and began to write in her journal. "Today I saw a little boy learn to read his first word. Today I saw a young girl's face light up at a new book. Today I learned that giving what we have, even if it seems small, can grow into hope for many." Throughout the semester, Arya balanced her studies and her foundation work. She wrote essays on teaching strategies and presented plans for new mobile clinics to check children's health. She studied hard and found joy in each new idea. David mentored her, offering gentle advice and sharing stories of other cities where kindness had made a difference. Arya felt grateful for the chance to learn from him, and for the power of her own simple choice. By spring, Arya's scholarship covered all her needs. She invited her mother and Marcus to campus for Parents' Day. They walked through the student union, admiring art displays and listening to music in the courtyard. Marcus rode a borrowed bicycle and laughed as Arya cheered him on. Her mother watched with pride in her eyes. Arya felt at home, both at college and in her neighborhood, because she had built a bridge between them. On the last day of classes, Arya stood before her education class to present her final project, a plan to bring reading vans to 5 new cities, using lessons learned from her own community. She spoke clearly and confidently, describing funding, sources, volunteer training, and community partnerships. Her classmates listened, impressed by her real-life experience and passion. When she finished, they applauded. Arya's eyes scanned the room until they settled on David's face in the back row. He nodded and smiled, and Arya felt her heart swell with gratitude. That evening, back home, Arya sat at the garden she had helped plant years ago. The flowers were tall now, and bees flitted among the blossoms. She knelt to touch a petal, its softness a reminder of how much had grown from one small seed. She thought of David, of Marcus, of her mother, and of the ragged man who turned out to be a billionaire in disguise. She realized that everyone has a story, and every story can change a life, and sometimes a whole city when simple kindness leads the way. As the sky turned pastel pink, Arya whispered to the garden, "Thank you." She closed her eyes and felt the earth beneath her hands, warm and alive. She stood and traced her finger along the plaque on a nearby bench. "May kindness grow here." She smiled and walked home, ready for whatever the next sunrise would bring. For she had learned that every morning holds a chance to give, to change, and to grow. And that is the greatest story of all.